Welcome to Vitamin OC. I'm Joanna Weiss.
And I'm Whitney Gomez. Every week we bring you your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County. Today, we're joined by Kyle Williams, founder and chief empowerment officer of A Long Talk About the Uncomfortable Truth, an organization dedicated to helping people develop the knowledge, skills, and confidence to interrupt ignorance and bigotry in real time. Through what the organization calls an anti-racism activation experience, A Long Talk has worked with thousands of participants across schools, universities, corporations, faith communities, and athletic programs throughout the United States and beyond. I was able to go through the program a few years ago when my graduate school offered it to alumni. It's extremely powerful.
Kyle brings more than 25 years of experience as an educator, school leader, mentor, and community builder. Raised in Plainville, New Jersey, he spent nearly 2 decades helping lead a Washington, D.C. charter school before expanding his work nationally through educational consulting and professional development. In the aftermath of the racial reckoning that followed the events of 2020, Kyle transformed a conversation he had had with a college basketball team into what would become A Long Talk, a movement focused not simply on awareness, but on empowering people to take meaningful action.
What makes Kyle's approach distinctive is his belief that lasting change comes not from labeling or shaming people, but from educating, equipping, and activating them. His work challenges participants to confront difficult truths about American history, examine their own assumptions, and develop practical skills for engaging in difficult conversation and addressing racism in everyday life. Kyle Williams, welcome to the podcast.
I'm happy to be here, excited to have this conversation with you all.
And Kyle, Whitney has really raved about your program, so much so that I am excited to hopefully take it myself, but I'm not sure I completely understand what it is. You describe it as an activation experience. What does that mean? And can you please set the table for us by telling us what A Long Talk actually is?
Yeah. No, I think, well, thank you for the question. I think, first of all, it is exactly that. And I'm very particular with words. I'm a wordsmith, if you will. I'm not in terms of making them up, but I really pay attention to what words say and why we use them. There's so many to choose from, right? So we purposely named it an activation experience because even when you said, I'm excited about your program, that opens up. I've been asked if I'm a podcast. I've been asked if I'm, if there's a book club. I've been asked about all kinds of things. If it's a diet, I've been asked about all kinds of things. Like, what is is it rehab? What are we talking about? But the idea of saying, nah, we're not just, because those are things you go through and then you hope to come out a little bit differently. And so the idea of it not being a program is important to me because, again, if I go to an elementary school, I might go to watch a program, right? So the wording is very particular. So to answer your question, an activation experience is just that. The goal to go through an activation experience is to come out activated to do something different. So it's literally, whether you want to call it transformation, not even just changing, but then changing behavior after it. I'll give you an example. The formula is really simple. We believe that information plus empathy equals action. And so what we have developed is a 21-day activation experience where we can start to connect some of the dots for people, especially when it comes to this issue of white supremacy and anti-Blackness and racism in America from the foundation to today and how we as the next generation have to do something about it. The activation is to say we have to first understand that we've pretty much been placed in a space of ignorance around our history of our country. And so what A Long Talk is first and foremost, we believe we could educate to end hate. We believe that if people knew better, they would do better. But most Americans have no idea the actual depth of white supremacy that we have to dig ourselves out of. We really don't understand what this country is built on, right? And so when you don't know that, even if you care, you can't really do anything about it, right? So like sometimes I talk about this gap of trying to fill in this hole. There's a huge hole of what this country has been put into because of the negativity of white supremacists, colonialism, and we try to sprinkle some things and do some things that change that, and it grows a little bit. But to get out of the hole is a whole bunch of repair to do. But because most Americans have no idea about that, the first step is you have to learn. So we have an 80-minute video that sets the table, if you will, for everything that we do. It's called The History of Race in America. Everybody has to watch the video to even just start to have more questions about what we just didn't know collectively, right? So once we do that, that's the empowerment part of now that I know better, I can do better. But then the activation piece is that we teach a skill called the CPR protocol but we teach how to become interrupters of ignorance. And what I mean by that is that what we do is that this is a war on ignorance. So a long talk is called a long talk about the uncomfortable truth. And the reason why these truths are uncomfortable is because we're supposed to be ignorant of them and just to show up like they don't exist. So that's why we don't learn about them in school. That's why it's not in the media. That's why we don't really understand the truth. So what we do is once we break through that, now we give a way to a framework to interrupt the normalcy of acting like this doesn't exist or that we don't understand it. So we teach the CPR protocol. So if someone says a racist comment that may come from a space of ignorance, they just don't know better. Maybe they just innocently don't understand a certain concept, or a sexist comment or a homophobic. They just don't know what they're talking about. We teach a skill for regular people to just stand up and interrupt. And just we teach that in our session, we practice it, and then we actually say, all right, now just go do that every single day. That's what you're activated. And then go tell some more people about us so we can get some more people like you who can then interrupt Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving next time, and we can all have a better time. Like that's the ultimate goal. So I hope that's our price. It's a 21-day activation that leads into a community of people that are striving for that exact goal everywhere they go.
Well, I appreciate that. And what I really like about it is kind of starting from that space of assuming that if people knew better, they would do better. And a motto that I've tried to live by at least in the activist world that I've been in the last 10 or 15 years is assume best intentions. And I think it's kind of grounding everything in that if people, most people are good natured enough to where at least, 75% of the folks are going to not want to be perceived as racist or be hurtful or homophobic. So it's that education piece, I think, in activation is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. The humbling is important for all of us. We just when and it's not like when I talk about a war on ignorance. I think what it does sometimes people get a little offended. First of all, it's war. Yes, I think we have to get in the trenches to change this country. It's not going to happen by some passive. We've already proven just generations of passiveness don't change the real peace, right? But this war on ignorance, ignorance can be defined as first of all, you can be innocently ignorant. Like I really don't know I don't know anything about you other than what the emails have said, which means I'm innocent. I'm ignorant of 99.5% of your entire lives. I don't know your children's names. Now that's ignorance. I can spend an hour with you and talk and fill in a whole bunch of gaps, and now I'm no longer ignorant about that information. It's just a conversation. But if we never do that, I'm still ignorant about it. But that's a level we have to accept, that we know there are way more things that we're ignorant about than we're knowledgeable about, like millions of more things than we know. So that first thing is important to just understand. And I think that brings people to a place where they can say, you know what? If I'm innocently ignorant, why would I not want to show up and just learn and and understand, right? But then we have people that are a little bit more, they're negligently ignorant. Like they might know, like I might sit down and learn something about you and not just think it's that important and maybe just mess that up or say something wrong because I just don't really think it's important. There's still some intent there that I just don't. So but still, that's a little bit different. But then there's the willful ignorance. Like I might tell you my child's name and you might intentionally mess it up to try to trigger me. Like that's intentional ignorance. But when I first meet you, I don't know who you are. So I don't know what level of where you are. And if you are, because we deal with it differently. If I give you some information and you receive it and we say that makes sense, let's go forward. That's an easy conversation versus I got to argue with you to convince you of something. You know what I mean? So I think I'm just trying to sort through the crowd. I'm not even trying to talk to everybody. I'm not trying to act. That's why I call it activation. If you're not really there to have an activation experience, don't show up for. We're not going to come there to convince you. That's not our audience.
Kyle, this organization grew out of a conversation you had with a college basketball team in 2020. What made you think that one discussion could become a national movement?
Well, it started actually with a basketball coach, one coach that was my son's coach, and at the time when we had that conversation, I did not think it was going to start a movement. My son heard me have the conversation in front of him, and we hung up the phone, and I was like, well, I don't know how that's going to go tomorrow. But we had a very uncomfortable conversation, right? And so I don't know. So the origin story of Long Talk is that, I had one conversation with a coach. My son had an instance of racism with his team, with his captain of his team. After George Floyd was murdered, his captain of his team said some very disrespectful things under my son's social media posts. When my son challenged him about that, this kid doubled down and just told him, be careful with the looters, bro. We need you at practice. like really, he became a op. And my son challenged him in a way that was very much when this kid tripled down at one point. My oldest son told him on site, when I see you, be ready to defend yourself. Like that was how this whole thing started. So it was a very much uncomfortable. So when I called the coach and talked to the coach about it, I was calling to explain to him that he had a problem. They were going to be on a Zoom call the next day. So I said, when you get on the Zoom call, I'm going to tell you my son's about to have questions for the whole team. Because if the captain could feel that way, and I'm a freshman and y'all are seniors, y'all been here, I don't know any of y'all for real. So now we got to talk because I don't know who else is going to have to catch it on site when I see you. like that's where this thing started. So, and it was just about sorting the crowd to find out which one of y'all, like when we get back to campus, like who was the person. So that's how it started. And when I reached out to the coach and I told him the truth about what was going on, I didn't know how he was going to respond. And I wasn't looking for his approval. I was letting him know that when this happens, when my son and this kid get back in the same room, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. And if you don't deal with it, my son's going to deal with it, because we don't really do that. We don't, like, that's not acceptable. That's not how my son was raised. And it might just be a hard foul at practice, but I'm telling you, there's something coming at it if you don't fix this. And the coach could have done a whole bunch of stuff with that. He could have cut Elijah and said, I don't want to deal with it. He could have done a whole bunch of things. But he actually leaned into the conversation and decided he wanted to do something even larger than I've ever seen before. And we had a conversation where for 10 minutes, I tried to explain to him all this history, all this pain and anger and frustration. And while I realized he was listening to me, he also didn't understand it. He didn't have any anchors. So I gave him that 80-minute video. And after watching that 80-minute video, he immediately understood it and became an activated anti-racist, turned into a Superman of activism overnight, literally from watching a video. And has not stopped to this day. Has created institutional change at Gettysburg College by creating programming initiatives and doing all kinds of stuff, not just around diversity, but just around being a better campus for everybody. It's like, so when I saw that, it just started, that's when I realized, I don't know if it was going to be a national movement. My first idea was if I had 5 white guys like that, I could pat myself on the back and say, look, because he started changing things. And I was like, who else could I aspire? And when I threw the net out, I just happened to have an opportunity to throw the net out wide because I was kind of connected in the college basketball world. And because of that, when I put the call out to say, I have a video that I need you all to watch, college coaches, over 100 college coaches showed up for 3 days of Zoom calls for 90 minutes because I still work with the #1 AAU basketball program in America. And so we had talented athletes. And so we told every coach, if you want our kids, you should come to this Zoom call. And 4 national champions showed up because they really wanted to recruit our kids. Even then, though, it wasn't supposed to be a national movement. I was going to do it one time. Like, it was the pandemic. We were a couple months into the pandemic. I was just going to get it off my chest because I was tired of talking and nobody was listening. So once they decided they were going to gather and listen, I made this curriculum and did the best lesson plan of my life. And just threw it out there and said, I need y'all to hear me, go back to your schools and do something like these coaches have done that have already gotten started close to my kids. And I was done with it. And then they started calling me back. They wanted us to do it again and have other teams do it. And they wanted to talk to their team. And it became, so we started in the middle of the pandemic. Everybody was kind of home. So we got on a Zoom call. And for the first probably 6 months, we did it free of charge over and over again, probably 50 times because no one even had money. The world was stuck. So we just started having this conversation, whoever showed up, and thousands of people started having this conversation and spreading. That's how we started. And so it's been that same movement since then. It goes as the people go. Because Whitney was moved, she wanted us to come here. That's where we have the messaging. That's all. We don't advertise. I don't have a marketing company. I don't do any, direct sales, none of that stuff. Because I'm not looking for everybody. I'm looking for the next person that needs to hear the message so we can connect with the next university or the next church or the next building or wherever. And we just go from there.
Within the social justice movement, one of the parameters that we work under is the idea that the labor of education on some of these issues like racism, sexism, homophobia shouldn't come from the people who are burdened. What are your thoughts on the idea that you are having to educate white people on racism and that labor shouldn't necessarily fall on you?
I think white supremacy has built a whole bunch of things to make white people think they shouldn't care as much as they should. I think they give y'all a whole bunch of stumbling blocks like white savior syndrome. Why not be the fucking savior? Like if you see white supremacy, I would love for a white person to save me from white supremacy all day long. If you see rape, if a woman is getting raped and a man walks by, be the male savior. Like what is wrong? Like, but it's this burden of I don't want to feel because they give you guilt for actually caring. See, that's what they throw at white women. I'm gonna be honest with you. From the conversations I've had, like you're not supposed to interrupt people. You're supposed to make people feel good. You're not supposed to. Then you're not supposed to make them feel too good by being a savior, right? It's just all this confusion to keep you stand still, right? So I say to that first piece is that I think I kind of dismiss. I don't say dismiss it because it's real, but I don't give it the power of having to have a solution other than to shine a light on it and recognize what it is. It's a manipulation. And I think once you see it as a manipulation, no one has to tell you how to not be swayed by manipulation if you don't want to, right? So I would just say that first thing is if you believe you're supposed to be in a space doing something, no one has to give you privilege or license. That's the other thing. It's almost like white people have to give permission to do something about racism. Guess what? Racism affects white people too. It's impossible for you to understand or had to have lived up in the aura of the culture of all the anger, the hatred, the mythology, all the stuff that goes up. Just like black people have generational trauma, so do white people. That's why you get afraid to say something or offend somebody because you don't want to get into the mix. Like all that stuff is real. That's why we whisper. Well, the girl, the new job, the girl, the new job, the black girl. We whisper like someone's going to jump out of the ceiling. That's generational trauma of racism. So my first step is it's a all of us problem. I'll say it this way. I'm new to this. I grew up as a militant black person. My social justice looked like punching you in your face. Like that was my social justice, right? And so this new space of talking about it and having these conversations, my understanding of, I'm teaching you to do something in a space that I can't do it. No one else, what I do recognize is that one way that black people have to help white people is that y'all don't have any heroes that have actually done this because nobody even tells y'all about them. I ask a question in the long talk all the time. Name the greatest white civil rights leaders you learned about in school. I've asked 25,000 people that question. And you know what I get? The same silence your brain is searching for right now. Because no one ever taught you intentionally about those people. Of course they were there. But no one ever taught you about them and told you about them. So I understand as a black person, if I can inspire, my title is called Chief Empowerment Officer. If I can inspire somebody to say, you can do this too, it's just, let's go. Because and to be honest with me, and maybe I'm going to cut a little bit different, I don't have any particular individual pain against white people. I've never had a white boss. I went to HBCU. 7 white people graduated in my class, and maybe one of them were ahead of me in the top 5. Like I was not burdened. I had a white racist teacher at my school, and when he said something and I finally caught him, I took him to his boss, who happened to be my mom. Like I don't have a lot of losses. So my burden is not about trying to make you feel a certain way. My burden is to find out of the 230 million white people in America, how many want to finally join us actively in fighting white supremacy for all of us to prosper. That's it.
Answer. I appreciate it. Very
So,
nice.
yeah, so I'm unburdened in this work for me personally. Yeah. So
Thank you for that.
that's a good question though. And I hear that I've heard it before, but that's a good, I don't, it's a, I understand where it comes from. I don't want to come off dismissive of the concept of that there are many black people who I've talked to. I could never do DEI, first of all. I'm not a DEI person at all. And it's not to knock that. I just don't have any credentials or been trained. And my tongue doesn't fit over there. My mouth doesn't fit in the DI because you have to appease everybody. I'm dropping the mic when I'm done. If you call me back, fine. I really don't want to have to come back to your space. My goal is to activate you in your space. I got other people to go talk to, and y'all just keep going. Like, that's really the plan for me. So I don't have to feel like I need to make someone feel a little more comfortable. No, we're going to say it. If you have to walk out in the middle of it, that's fine. That's data for y'all to recognize. Somebody might want to follow up with him when we finish to find out what's going on. Like, so it's all good. So I think that's another space for me is I think in the spaces where it can become exhausting to try to hold your hand through it, I could care less. If somebody walks out of there even more determined to battle racism, I just want them to have to say it out loud in front of their friends because the rest of the friends aren't laughing at the joke anymore. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's all I'm looking for. So it's a different approach. I couldn't do the exhausting part that they do for sure.
I learned about your program through my graduate school. My daughter learned about it from her athletic department at the collegiate level, and my husband knew about it from his college soccer team. When I did the program a few years ago, you had incredible momentum and interest. Now, in the wake of the 2024 election, the need for this seems larger than ever. Has demand changed in the last 2 years? How has the national landscape impacted you?
I think the demand has risen, the resources have dried up, but more importantly, the power shift. We started this in college athletics, right? That's with our first on ramp. Again, we just kind of grew and shared through there, and the majority of our business, the majority of our network was grown through college athletics. We've been in many different spaces at the whole time, but that was the main driver. Places like Yale University, where every student athlete went through a long talk for was supposed to be 3 years. We'll get to that, but we went through it for 2 years. And then at Penn, where we've had 4 years in a row of every single student athlete going through our 21-day activation experience. So we have built a following there. When the administration shifted, it's another sort. And what I mean is the people who were looking for out now had an out. The pressure switched in the other direction. Obviously, during the after George Floyd, after 2020, after all of a sudden that was going on, and you had this momentum in a different direction, you were on the outside looking in if you didn't do something. This new administration flipped the switch to say, if you're doing this stuff, we're going to target you, we're going to put pressure on you. And so people were able to jump off by saying, it doesn't work for us anymore, or we're going to do something different that's a little bit more inclusive to everybody, because we recognize that even white people are being discriminated against. So it became a different conversation, because clearly I don't have that slide in my deck. So I think that's what it was. And so what I saw, though, for me was another sort. See, here's the thing that's kind of for me is I grew up believing that white people were never going to help me to combat white supremacy. Why would they? I never saw that. I was not taught that. I was not taught to expect that. I was taught I was crazy if I expected that as I went through life, right? So for me, it's a bonus when I find that people that want to do something. It was always for me. So I'm just trying to sort the whole time. I'd much rather spend, you know, I worked 40 times at Yale. I think the year before too, the second year work, I was at there 40 connections between teams and sessions, 40 times traveling back and forth. And when the pressure came to them, they were done. They couldn't do it anymore. The pressure, Harvard fell, Penn has stuck it out, but Yale just was like, we're done, right? And we didn't get to the third year of a 3-year plan with them. Right. That freed up a whole bunch of time for me to start working in the churches. So now we took a church pilgrimage with 50 Methodists, the pastor of the United Methodist Church. I'll share a video with you. It's going to make you cry. Be careful. I'll tell you right now. But we took 50 pilgrims on a civil rights pilgrimage to the King Center in Atlanta, Ebenezer Baptist Church one day. The next day we get up and go to the bridge and walk across the bridge in Selma with the bishop of the New England Methodist Church conference. And then the third day we spent in Montgomery at the Equal Justice Institute Justice Site. So, it was incredible. So what those people are seeing the vision of what needs to happen. And so whether the schools kind of got us started, there's actually a lot more Christians in the country than there are college athletes, if you can imagine. So the idea is that we just have another lane to travel, and it frees up moments for me to say, I don't have to go to Yale. I can stop at the church up the street in New Haven, which is literally what's happening right now. I've been to New Hampshire. We're going to Maine, like literally. So for me, it's again, a cleaner sort. I just want to work with the willing and the people that are saying, I get it. I got it. I'm trying to put an anti-racist at every dinner table in America. I can't go back to people's houses twice. I don't have time for that. So I need people that are going to get it. Let's go. I don't want to have to convince a whole bunch of people. Just let's roll. So for me, is a sort. It helps me again. And even my business model, no one can afford us ever since we ever started. Literally, we've done it for free. We've done it. Everyone gets a discount. Money has never been an issue for us. I've shown schools a $40,000 plan and they were like, we got 5,000. I was like, let's run it. Let's go. Like, it doesn't matter. If you're willing to do the work, let's go. Let's and we'll build in, help me with a promo video. Tell 10 of your friends what we did. And that's the business of it. If anything, I'm looking to build a movement. So it doesn't stop me, because we just get more creative and it makes the real ones pop out. Like, I don't have time for the people that were going to quit and not finish year 3. That took a lot of time. We did great work there. Don't let me knock it. And we're great people there. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for people that want to get through the finish line on this thing. That's what I'm doing. So.
One of the tenets of your activation is that it's not enough to simply be not racist. What does meaningful action look like for an ordinary person who's looking to make a difference?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is that teaching yourself, like taking control of your own education. Again, I can do it in an 80-minute video. You don't have to watch another thing, another documentary. You don't have to read another book. Watch this 80-minute video, and I promise you'll have enough to get your momentum to go. But the other thing is, don't the idea of being a non-racist is what we were almost a generation was kind of taught, like, coming out of the 60s, like we're supposed to fix this. So just don't be racist, love everybody, and things will be better, and we'll get to this happy place in America. But we forgot that the racists weren't going to stop the pressure they were putting on. So when you become non-racist, you just get you just start getting enveloped because you start to enable and allow that. We would never tell a person to be non-child abuse. Never. You would never. And we say it proudly. I'm not a racist. I'm non-racist. My thing that I say is, if people say to me, Kyle, why would I need a anti-racism activation experience if I'm not a racist? I don't have a racist bone in my body. Well, how many anti-racist muscles do you have moving those bones? See, that's the question. Because we're going to give you these muscles to get those great. You're a perfect candidate. Matter of fact, you're the perfect candidate. Because as soon as I show you how to do just 10 push-ups, you're going to be a monster in this because you just basically started from no racist bones in your body. Let's get them moving, right? You don't have the weight of the racism. I don't have to retrain you. Let's just get them. So the idea for me is that you got to give people, something to do. You got to teach them what to do. And then you got to just interrupt. We teach people just to interrupt ignorance. If somebody says something, the next time your child or your grandchild tells you they don't want to clean up their room, we teach them how to use a CPR protocol and say, what do you mean when you say you don't want to clean up the room? And just give them a microphone. That's the CPR pro. Whenever you get challenged I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to, so that's an interrupter. Somebody walks in and says, I can't believe they hired this woman. It definitely was a affirmative action hire. I'm not going to argue with you. What exactly do you mean when you say she's an affirmative action hire? That's what I need you to do in the lunchroom, because I need the pressure to be on that person to realize you just can't walk in here and say stuff like that. I don't need you to giggle. I don't need you to smirk. I don't want you to stand up and tell them to get out, because they have the right to be there with their ignorance. But I need you to let them know this is a no ignorance zone that they walked into. And it's a bunch of questions that gets interrogated when you try to bring ignorance through the custom board. We got a border here. And you're trying to bring it through. We got questions like, what do you mean with that? Do you understand that's not really how that affects other people? Is there any other way you can say that differently? No? Well, you got to go sit over there at another table, because we don't do that here. That's empowerment. The next time someone's in a board meeting and they go through the whole meeting and nobody talks about how this affects the women employees who might be pregnant or on maternity leave, when a man stands up and says, hold on a second, we're not done yet. I know we're about to wrap up, but we didn't finish this because we got to deal with this issue. That's activism. Just becoming the interrupter of saying, having the two women have to walk out and say, they did it again. They didn't talk about it. That's activism when the man stands up and says, we're going to talk about it. So it's not major things. Now, some people can do major things. Rudy Fuller at the University of Pennsylvania decided to push through, and that's why Pennsylvania does this every single year without question, because one man decided his influence was a little bigger. But that impacts a lot of other people a certain way. So as an individual, just do something. Just stop laughing at the joke, because you do realize if somebody keeps telling you a sexist or a misogynist joke and they keep telling it to you, say because they think you think it's funny. Like, until you tell them it's not funny, they're going to show up tomorrow and practice another joke. So your own lack of activism is causing us to spread. So the point for me is that there's always something you can do. I don't know. Some people can do major things. Like, some people actually can. I sat with a representative, Dan Goldman, and we talked for 45 minutes. He could have walked out of my meeting, went across the hall in the Congress and asked the question that I challenged him to ask. And I said to him, if you don't want to ask the question, then who else door can I knock on when I walk by? Because I just want to know who's going to ask the question of why we can't do something about this. And to this day, he's never asked the question. I don't know anyone else on my phone that can actually get up in that room and talk. So that was my one shot. Right. But he has to now do it for it to become part of what we're doing. Right. So that's just the idea. Some people have different power, but just use your own personal power to answer the call.
My daughter was in Philadelphia and went to see the Liberty Bell, and a whole bunch of the plaques that had been explaining the history a lot about slavery were taken down in Philadelphia. And there were signs up that people had put up saying, this is missing, go find on this website. And she was floored by that. I was not floored by that, because there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on right now. So when you look around at the white supremacy, white nationalism movement, what gives you pause? What are you worried about besides the big picture and everything? And what gives you hope?
Well, I guess what gave me pause most recently is when the ICE killed 2 white people and y'all didn't really say nothing. That gave me a little bit of a pause. And I say not really say nothing because when George, and I know it was a different time and the people were inside, the George Floyd movement and Black Lives Matter push, but even when it was just Trayvon Martin in the public, we came a little more outside. And I'm not saying people didn't come outside, but I just feel like it's 230 million white people. And when they killed 2 white people, they shot them in the street and people chose the sides of the officers. That gave me a little pause because that made me realize in some way at the end of this, they feel some sort, I don't even know the answer to all of it. I just know that was a data point for me that I had to mention. Empathy is everything. Who we can empathize with is everything. And so it's easy for me when a black teacher gets tased to death in LA. I don't have to know that person to know that they're probably not gonna get any justice. That's empathy that kicks in, right? So I get it sometimes when white people might not get, when a single mother of 3 gets killed. I can understand why the empathy, I'm saying not really, but yes, I can understand it, right? But when a white woman gets shot down and a white man gets killed and white people still don't come outside, in mass, that was gave me a little pause. I was expecting a little more, but then I go back to you have no practice for this. You're not used to having to come outside for your people. And that's a little bit, so I don't know how long it's gonna take to rev the engine. So like even what you said about your daughter, she's seeing something that in your generation would have been because you grew up in a space where it was becoming the thing to embrace all this stuff. It became normal. Your daughter thought that's what she was inheriting. And now she sees the truth of what America really was even before you and I were coming up. Our parents' America and the parent before that America. Like we just caught a little glimpse of what it might be. But all that stuff is literally being stripped away. So what gives me pause is that not as many white people are as angry about it and are doing as much about it. And they're looking around. And because if you look at the No Kings marches, wasn't a lot of black people outside. And again, I'm generalizing it very much. But if you look at the pictures, and I kind of feel like I have a T-shirt that says "White people to the front." Like, come on, y'all. It's like as soon as y'all decide to end this in one generation, it's a wrap. When the majority of white children that are coming up today or the majority of white Americans today just say, you know what? We're just going to use our dollars and our votes to get rid of all the white supremacists on both sides of the aisle. That's the end of it, right? So that's what I'm waiting for. That's what gives me hope is that we do have every tool possible in America. That's the beautiful thing about this country is that we have everything we need. We have a democratic voting system, which we need to protect. Right? We have technology to get the word across. We have people that care. Like we're way better people than we're represented as. When we travel around the world, we're looked at as demons and evil and people who blow up boats off of Venezuela. Like that's not necessarily us, but the image of Americans, you and I are always welcome, especially not now. I'm learning that from some friends that have traveled. But this idea of, we have the tools. I feel like the $6 million man, we can rebuild this, right? But we have to honestly strip it all the way down to the core and say, and I think that's the hope for me is that there are many people like you who, when I show a video that strips it to the core, they don't run away from it anymore. And honestly, part of the hope is the fact that it's so blatant gives me hope that it's not hidden anymore, which makes it easier to fight. So your daughter and my kids' generations, they're seeing it live time. Not in the 80s and the 90s, we had to hear stories about what was happening. Right, we thought it was getting better. We had things that popped up here and there, but we felt successful. Obama gets elected. We think we're rolling. This generation is like, oh, this is what y'all was talking about. Like straight. We're gonna take yeah, that's what we're talking about. So I'm not a Donald Trump fan in any way, but I do love the transparency of his white supremacy. Makes me feel a whole lot more comfortable than all the rest of them that came before him that said one thing and did another. At least he's very honest about his transparency of white supremacy. I love it. For me, honestly, because it just unmasks what's already there and just shows you all the pull strings he can make to make it do what he wants it to do. So when are we going to step up and do something as a people? I believe in the people. So that's why I'm doing this every single day because I just have this glimmer of hope that maybe there's this baton that's being passed to me and maybe we don't have to even march that much. Maybe we got to show up on Zoom and learn how to do CPR protocols and interrupt ignorance all around us and change the way we vote and vote for things like having a voting block to just end white supremacy. Having a voting block for a true meritocracy in America on both sides of the aisle. Don't even change you can stay a Republican. Just tell them to give you only the anti-racist people on your ballot and see and Democrats too. Like who has a structural analysis of what we're going to do? Show me what it looks like. And if they don't have that, you can't get my vote. So where's the independent that needs to come up? Like something has to change, but we, the people, just have to decide to do it. And that's the greatness of America, the promise of America, but the product of America has rarely met that. So that's what we have to change. So
So, if people are listening to the podcast or watching the podcast on YouTube, if you could leave every viewer with a skill or mindset that would help build stronger relationships across some of these differences, what would you want that to be?
Yeah. So the first thing would be is to go from furious to curious. When people are, you find you're disagreeing with and and they're upsetting you about some of the stuff they say, stop letting their ignorance affect your emotions. Because that's the first layer of all these families that are splitting apart where they, I haven't talked to my dad because it's an emotional conversation. How about just make it an inquiry and an interrogation and then go talk about something different? But like, if we're gonna talk about this thing I disagree with you on, instead of getting furious with you, I'm just gonna get curious. And instead of trying to be your debater, I'm gonna be your interviewer. And I'm just gonna let you do all the work all night long. Explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old because I have no idea. I don't know what you mean by these immigrants. Which immigrants are you talking about? The ones from Italy? Oh no, not those. The ones from what's the difference between the immigrants from Italy and the ones from the southern border? You know what I mean? Like, not you can't think of anything. Could it happen to be their skin color? Like, I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm gonna make you the expert of your ignorance. So I'm gonna go from furious to curious. And again, even as my child, I don't argue with my kids anymore. Like if something doesn't, hey, you left the house a certain way. What are you trying to tell me about that? How you think it makes me feel? I just want to know who you are, right? What's gonna happen the next time you ask me to bring your friends over if you're gonna leave the house looking like this? Your choice, buddy. Because I'm not arguing with you anymore. I just have questions. I'm curious. So I would say yes, absolutely. Next time your husband upsets you, the next time your spouse upsets you, just go from furious to curious and start asking questions that clarify, that then probe deeply to say, how you feel, and then redirect. What could we do differently to make this a better outcome? I would say that, and I'm using that because that's the skill I teach at alongtalk.com every single month. We teach it for free. You can learn it. It'll change your life. I don't argue with anybody anymore. That's why, again, this is less exhausting than anything I've ever done. Because I'm not arguing with anybody. I have a T-shirt that says, "Never argue with someone John Brown would have shot." So I wear that proud. I wear that T-shirt proudly because I'm just not going to argue with ignorance anymore. So I would say yes to let's liberate yourself from having to argue with ignorance by learning how to do the CPR protocol and becoming an expert at it. That's what I'll lead them with.
Okay. And if people want to do this program and they're not affiliated with the group that's promoting, they can just go to your website, sign up for it. Does it cost anything? Give us the details.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to alongtalk.com. The first page you see, you're going to see a red button that says join us. And that will bring you into the Along Talk universe. Once you get there, it's going to ask you to select one of the next upcoming Along Talk for Alls. We do this 2 times a month at least. We do it. That's free, no charge. And you can have the same exact experience I give at Yale, the same I give at UCLA, wherever we do it. It's the same exact experience, the same 21-day activation experience. And you're in the same community of learners for as long as you want to be in there by coming to our website. It's open to absolutely anybody in the world.
Kyle, thank you so much for this. I am really hopeful that our listeners will pay attention to this and take the trainings themselves. I know I look forward to it. I'm going to log on when we get off and make sure I sign up. But you're doing this work at a time where it couldn't be more important. And so I know you're galvanized by an unfortunate incident that your son experienced, but thank you for turning this into such a positive thing and making it accessible to folks. We need a lot more people like you, and thank you for activating as many people as take your course so that we can continue to have these people disrupting racism.
Absolutely. And I got to throw it right back to you. Thank you for using your platform because whoever hears this because of you only heard it because of you, not because I've been yelling and screaming it from all over. You used your platform and you decided to push it along. And that's the only way the work that I do gets to the people that need it. So thank you all for making this time and really focusing on this opportunity to talk about it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
You really created something special. I remember being absolutely blown away when I did it, and I'm so glad that you continue to do this work. We sincerely appreciate your time today. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us to get your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County.
We'll see you next time on Vitamin OC.